Now, it is true that most bodybuilders, including him, took a lot of steroids and growth hormones.
What's up guys, Derek, moreplacemoreeats.com. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Eric Berg and his advice on how to grow muscle. And it's sort of a misleading title because it's about how to grow your muscles. Plain and simple, that's it. However, he then goes on to say at the beginning, this is how to do it if you're doing, he's obsessed with healthy keto and intermittent fasting, and he seems to think it is the best thing for literally everything and disregards any kind of evidence that suggests otherwise. So we're going to be going through his video and explaining if this guy should be talking about this subject or not.
Here's a good question. Can you actually grow your muscles when you're doing intermittent fasting and keto? Now, I have done other videos on this, but I want to go more into the exercise part of this, because if you're doing intermittent fasting and keto and you're not doing exercise, you're not going to grow your muscles, okay? Why? Because the most important stimulus to muscle hypertrophy, which is growing muscle, is the intensity of the exercise, okay? Intensity of the exercise. Now, before I get into the exercise part, I want to talk about the foundation that surrounds this, because when you do intermittent fasting...
So this is where he goes into actual nutrition advice on how to maximize muscle growth, which is, as you would speculate when you're talking about intermittent fasting and ketosis, these are the two most contradictory things to optimizing muscle growth. So let's hear what he has to say.
Consistently, and you're actually adapted to ketosis, you will have higher levels of human growth hormone. And human growth hormone does cause the growth of muscle. And it also...
Okay, so if you have increased growth hormone levels because you're fasting, you have essentially enhanced lipolysis to actually support your bodily functions and give you energy. It's not indicative necessarily of the optimal way to go about building muscle. If you actually look at your IGF-1 levels, which we use as a proxy for, presumably a bodybuilder would be injecting to HGH in order to raise for the actual hyperplasia and or muscle growth aspect of things, it would be to get the downstream cascades into growth factor production, not for the boost in HGH, which is more for the lipolysis. So what he's going into here is about muscle preservation caused by, mechanisms to offset catabolism when you have no macronutrients present during a fast. However, just because your growth hormone levels increase, it doesn't necessarily mean that your growth factor production is going to go into the fucking stratosphere like you would if you had insulin present. So there's cascades of hormone production that rely on other cofactors in order to be facilitated properly. And for him to just plainly say intermittent fasting increases HGH, therefore increases muscle. It's like the same thing with Connor Murphy when he's talking about how fucking fasting increases growth hormone levels, so therefore you're gonna grow more muscle. And it's like go look at an IGF-1 level while you're fasting versus not fasting. It's gonna be crushed into the fucking ground, dude.
Prevents the loss of muscle. Now, on the opposite spectrum, if you're eating frequently through the day and you have insulin resistance and you have blood sugar issues, or you're pre-diabetic or diabetic.
That's true, but we're also just assuming that somebody who eats not any intermittent fasting window is automatically going to be insulin resistant, which is not necessarily the case at all. And this is coming from somebody who does intermittent fasting, by the way. I do a 16-8 window, and that's just how it works out. When I wake up, I'm not really hungry, so I take advantage of this and I don't eat for as long as I can because my brain is more mentally sharp when I don't have any food in my system. And at about the 8-hour mark, I start to get really hungry, and then I'll start eating, and then I'll eat for 8 hours, then I'll go to bed. If I was trying to maximize muscle growth though, I sure as fuck wouldn't be eating in an 8-hour window. Anyways, he goes on here to elaborate how on frequent meals, basically implying that you're going to become insulin resistant, and it's just the fucking worst thing ever.
You're gonna have more atrophy. So this is an important principle, to consume 2 meals a day, maybe even 1 meal a day, but I think 2 meals a day would be perfect.
I think it would be more, to be honest. I think if you were trying to be perfect with how to grow muscle, like the title of your video, it would be stimulating muscle protein synthesis more than 1 time or 2 times per day, to be honest.
Maybe keep your carbs at the higher end, but not over that, about 50 grams per day, because it is true that carbohydrates do stimulate insulin, and insulin is an anabolic hormone. However, we don't want to go too high because we were trying to prevent insulin resistance.
So this is where it kind of is like, why is it anabolic, Dr. Berg? Like, have you considered the downstream growth factor cascades that occur as a result of having actual fucking carbohydrates in your system, or the thyroid and how it is necessary to ensure you don't become fucking hypothyroid? Like, I can't even count how many times I've seen shit blood work at this point from guys on long-term keto who don't incorporate some level of carbohydrates into their system, especially around intense workout windows. And he goes into talk about insulin resistance, and I'll touch on more in a sec.
So if we provide the top limit of carbs, I think that would be a smart thing to do. And of course, we want to make sure that we have enough complete protein for the muscles to choose from, but not go too much. So 7 to 8 ounces of protein per meal would be a really good option. What you have to realize is that...
So he's pretty much saying now to have 7 to 8 ounces of protein per meal. So let's just say we're having 8 ounces of chicken, which is the high end of his recommendation. So we're having about 50 to 55 grams of protein in this meal, which we may only be eating once or twice a day. So we're stimulating muscle protein synthesis at 2 time blocks, and having arguably way more protein than a natural would otherwise need to maximally stimulate muscle protein synthesis in condensed time frames. And we're maxing out at like 100 to 110 grams of protein. Is that gonna be optimal? I don't know, dude.
When you consume protein, whether it's meat, fish, or eggs, or whatever, minimally, at least half of that is wasted as glucose fuel, because protein turns into glucose, or as nitrogen waste. So you're not really absorbing 100% of that unless you're taking certain types of amino acid blends. So by adding a ton of protein with your meals, that will not help you with this. It just creates more stress on your kidney and your liver, and it can actually increase your glucose a little bit too much.
So I think I did a video on this a while ago about how high protein diets in those who are otherwise healthy don't show any issues in kidney health. And this is guys eating more than a gram per pound of body weight, if I recall correctly, not guys eating like 100 grams of protein per day for a guy trying to build muscle, eating 1 time a day or twice a day. Like, dude, these recommendations are like, I understand you're trying to like be a hybrid of like health and performance here, but it's like, fuck, dude, like this is, try recovering on this kind of a diet model when you are lifting heavy weights 4 to 5 times a week. Like, man, he's not even acknowledging the endocrinology aspect of having low insulin levels chronically. Like, he's just implying that if you have any kind of like insulinogenic response above and beyond this like minimal amount of carbs he's allocated, that it's somehow going to make you like pre-diabetic, which is obviously not the case. And frankly, you would actually have a better metabolism if you knew how to intelligently incorporate carbs into your otherwise like low carb diet model. And this is what you'd use to stimulate proper thyroid hormone production and conversion, notably. And above and beyond that, how to facilitate the freedom of certain hormones into circulation. If you have a consistently ketogenic diet model, you are going to be increasing your SHBG very significantly to the point where you're gonna have a disproportionately low amount of free testosterone. This is what we see time and time again with the carnivore diet. I did a video a while back on how these carnivore diet guys were nuking their test levels because they were showing on paper, oh look, I have a 900 to 1,000 nanogram per deciliter test level in carnivore, it's the best thing ever. But then they'd show a free testosterone literally equivalent to somebody who's hypogonadal, and they were still claiming, oh, we have the best diet ever. And it's like, actually, you're fucking 80 SHBG and your super low free testosterone is actually worse than what you would otherwise have if you had some carbs in your diet. And interestingly enough, a lot of these guys that used to be super hardcore zealots of fucking carnivore only are now incorporating honey into their diets and having carbohydrates implemented intelligently to facilitate proper thyroid production and proper freeing of sex hormones into circulation, because they noticed that their metabolisms were getting fucked up, and they had SHBGs in the fucking triple digits in some cases and free testosterone levels in the fucking gutter. And this is why. And this is one of the things that Dr. Berg, I feel like, fails to realize when he pushes the keto diet and intermittent fasting down your throat.
And of course, sufficient sleep is very, very important, because if you're not sleeping, you increase the stress, and the hormone cortisol breaks down muscle protein.
Yeah, so obviously Obviously, obviously sleep is important. Sleep hygiene is very important. I'm not going to argue with that.
Now, this data that I'm going to tell you about right now is very, very powerful. And I got this from an interview from Dorian Yates. So he actually achieved Mr. Olympia 6 times.
He achieved Mr. Olympia 6 times. Like, you couldn't have even looked up what it was first. Like, I don't know, it just sounded like a really weird way to put it. He achieved Mr. Olympia 6 times. Not he won the Mr. Olympia show, contest, whatever, 6 times. He achieved it. It's a really odd way to put it.
So I wanted to see what he had to say about muscle growth, and I really liked his data. Now, it is true that most bodybuilders, including him, took a lot of steroids.
Just putting him on blast. He took a lot of steroids and what did he say here?
A lot of steroids and growth hormones.
Took a lot of steroids and growth hormones. Like, this guy couldn't sound more like a newbie to the shit.
However, I really liked his philosophy on muscle growth, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Personally, I am not doing it simply because that's not my goal right now, but I think it's worth looking at. This is what he said. Now, he'll start off with some warm-up sets, okay, some lightweight, just like most people will do that. So you warm up the muscle with some lighter weights, but then he will do one insanely, extremely difficult set of about 6 to 8 reps. So he will do these reps to total failure and beyond, okay? So he will go as hard as he can, and then when he can't go anymore, he'll get someone to spot him and assist him with a few more reps, okay? So he's going beyond total failure, and that's based on this principle of intensity right here. I mean, he is maximizing that workout intensity, because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to damage the muscle. You're trying to destroy that muscle through difficulty. Now, a couple key points to this. You want to keep perfect form, okay? And you don't want to recruit other muscles. And you don't want to create momentum as you're working out. You're trying to isolate one muscle at a time to maximum failure and beyond. But there's something else that he said that is really, really cool. When you work a muscle, you're going to, let's say you're doing bench press, you're going to contract the pec, okay? So you're coming out like this, and then you're going to come back, right? So you have concentric movement.
Okay, so he's basically going on to elaborate on very basic shit. Let me skip forward a bit here and see if I can skip some of the boring stuff that is not... I don't need him to elaborate on what going up and down fucking is in scientific terms.
Bench press, and you've just did 8 reps to total failure, you would have them assist you on the concentric part, okay, help you lift it all the way up, and then you would just bring it down slowly, okay, and you would keep doing that until you can't do it anymore, to failure.
Okay, so he's talking about going past failure and having somebody assist you and getting like more reps past failure, got it, kind of thing. Got it. Okay.
That way you completely and utterly exhaust that muscle to the point where you create some serious damage.
Now imagine trying to recover from this fucking damage with his fucking 1 meal a day, like 50 to 100 gram protein diet model with almost no carbohydrates whatsoever.
He's only going to work that muscle once a week. He's not going to hit it tomorrow or the next day. So he works at one muscle per week, and here's the key. You let it recover fully, 100%.
Good luck fucking doing that with this diet, dude.
Here's a big mistake that a lot of people do is they work out when that muscle is incomplete, that hasn't healed. So that's when you create scar tissue and injury. So this, number 5, allowing your muscle to recover fully, is what makes the muscle get bigger, okay? The exercise, the intensity, is just the damage of the muscle.
Maybe I'm being a dick because he's like trying to appeal to a mainstream audience that doesn't know like anything, but like some of this stuff is like I guess it's very basic, so somebody has to talk about it. But I mean, above and beyond that, the diet model is just brutal, dude. Like 7 to 8 ounces of protein once or twice a day with almost no carbs, because you get a better HGH fucking secretion, and because healthy keto is the only way to not become insulin resistant. Like, fuck, dude.
And then you let it heal. And so then the next time you work out, you're a little bit stronger. And at some point, you want to keep increasing the weight more and more and more until the muscle grows. So you don't want to go for momentum, intense set per exercise. Now, he may hit that muscle like the pec with maybe 3. He works out 1 hour per.
I like how he's trying to apply Dorian Yates training principles to guys who are eating 50 to 100 grams of protein once per day, intermittent fasting, on a fucking carb-deprived keto diet with barely any protein. Like literally like less than half of most of our body weights is what he's saying you should be using to recover from Dorian Yates' workout schedule without gear while following fucking intermittent fasting keto. Just like baffling shit, dude.
Per day, only 4 times a week. On the off days, he did cardio, which actually helps the recovery. Now, of course, if you're going to do this, you do not want to jump into this right away because you could hurt yourself. You want to go into this very, very gradual, probably hire a personal trainer to help you, and you want to, over a period of weeks, build up to this intense total failure and beyond.
Okay, so I guess he's putting out there to not go as hard as Dorian Yates off the bat, which is good and notable. But he's implying that you should be getting up to a workout standard of Dorian Yates after you've adapted to the training schedule. And it's like, bro, you're fucking not going to. You're not on gear. You're not fucking doing a diet that is something that's going to enable you to recover properly. In fact, I would argue that you're not going to recover properly from even a shitty program, to be honest, because this is with much less intensive a workload that's not going to drive you into the ground like Dorian Yates would. So I don't get it, dude. Like, I don't get where the logic comes from. It's like, I wonder if Dr. Berg is seeing blood work of these guys who follow his advice or not. Because it was only once the carnivore diet guys started putting out their blood work that everyone started to see how deleterious removing carbs entirely from their diet model was in terms of impacting actual proxies for how much muscle you're going to be able to build, like free testosterone.
But I really think if you combine this with your keto, intermittent fasting, keep your stress low, good sleep, you're going to be able to get muscle hypertrophy. All right, and number 5, very important. Okay, this is going to get you this right here. So you have to work out intensely to create the damage and the soreness, and then you have to recover.
You don't need to be sore to grow. That's just a fucking myth.
Completely for you to be able to have this occur. So it might take longer than a week. It could take 2 weeks, and sometimes maybe even 3 if
yeah, it could take 3 if you're following fucking Dr. Berg's diet.
you're just starting out. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so basically, if you want to grow muscle optimally, do not follow this diet model. If you want to live as long as possible and be a cold, low libido individual, then by all means. But above and beyond that, I think the happy medium is somewhere in the middle where you deploy, if you're going for like an aggressive muscle growth phase, like do it properly, like eat multiple meals a day, get your rest, like he said though, train with titrating volume and whatnot and intensity, that's fine. But I mean, like you're gonna need to eat more protein. You're gonna have some carbs around your workout at least. You need to approach this in as intelligent of a way and as efficient of a way as possible. And if you want to maximize your health, I would, deploy the things like the fasts, the keto, the shit like that in increments and cycles, like around, like in time blocks where you're not trying to maximize muscle growth. When you're trying to maximize muscle growth, you should not be focusing on like long drawn out fasts. You should not be focusing on depleting your carbohydrate intake as much as possible. You should not be focusing on low protein. These are all longevity strategies that do show clinical promise for achieving better lifespan, but it certainly does not support optimal anabolism. So if you're trying to support optimal anabolism, it is the total opposite to what's going to make you live a long time, unfortunately. But it's something that can be cycled in and out of, where you do phases of life where you are trying to grow a bunch of muscle, and then times of life where you're trying to focus on health and kind of clean up the potential deleterious things that have happened as a result of those phases where you try to build a bunch of muscle and then try and maintain the muscle during those phases where you're focused on health. Obviously, there's a hybrid in the middle too, but it's certainly not what he's presenting here with a fucking 55 to 100, 110 grams of protein per day in 1 or 2 meals, no carbs, intermittent fasting all the time, working up to Dorian Yates level intensity with this fucking keto diet that you're going to have low free T and shitty thyroid levels on. Like, no, dude, this is not the way to go about it. And I think most people watching this video probably know better. So take from that what you will. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think of Eric Berg's approach to how to grow your muscles? The title of this video is very misleading. It should be how I think you should grow your muscles while doing intermittent fasting and keto, because this is certainly not the best way to grow your muscles, as the title would imply. My camera's about to die, so if you want to support the channel, check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. Gorilla Mind, Gorilla Mode, my nootropic and pre-workout formulas, my TRT clinic if you are interested in hormone optimization and want telemedicine-based services where they optimize your hormones based on any deficiencies or imbalances you may have in your blood work. And design an individualized protocol for you from the comfort of your own home, as well as follow my social media at @moreplates_more_dates on can't fucking talk right now. My camera's about to die, so I'm a little flustered. On Instagram at @moreplates_more_dates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen on audio instead of watch on video and burn through your data in the gym and in the car, where you can't watch video without burning through your data. Because you probably don't have Wi-Fi while you're driving, or at the gym if you have shitty Wi-Fi connection like I do at the gym. What else? Nothing. Algorithm. Comment if you can. It helps. Thank you very much for doing that. Like, subscribe. Talk to you guys soon.